Welcome to the Happiness First radio show, where you learn to consciously create the life you want. Your host, Lorane Gordon, an expert in law of attraction and present moment awareness, along with her expert guests, give you the tools you need to focus your attention and thoughts to create your best life. And now, here's your host, Lorane Gordon.
Welcome to Your Happiness Way Radio with me, your host, your online coach, Lorane Gordon. And if you're a regular listener, then you know that the information and the expert guests I bring you is to help you create a happier and more love-filled life, a more abundant life in every way, including material goodies. You may know that I do love my material goodies, and you know that I teach that they add to your life. They don't make your life. Well, this show must be working because after 3 years, you, my listening audience, have continued to keep me in the top 10% of its kind. And I want to thank you for that because I know your time is valuable and you're determining to spend it with me. I have a really great guest today. He is a writer and he's a retired attorney by the name of Garnet Schulhauser. And Garnet lives near Victoria on Vancouver Island with his wife Kathy and their little dog Abby. He grew up on a small farm in Saskatchewan and moved to Calgary, Canada after law school, where he practiced corporate law for over 30 years. In Garnet's first book, Dancing on a Stamp, he recounts how his life changed dramatically one day in 2007 while still practicing law when he was confronted on the street by a homeless man named Albert, who was actually a wise spirit in disguise, an emissary from the spirit world. This seemingly chance encounter launched a provocative dialogue with Albert, who disclosed startling new truths about all of life's big questions, including our true nature as eternal souls, the cycle of reincarnation on Earth, and how we create our own reality through free will choices. He wrote Dancing on a Stamp at Albert's request so that these revelations could be available to everyone. And I personally am so excited to find out everything that was revealed to my wonderful guest today, Garnet Schulhauser. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you for having me, Lorane.
That's pretty amazing, your story. How did that work exactly? How did you find this person?
Well, it was really by accident. It wasn't planned on my part. I was still practicing law in Calgary at the time. I decided to go for a stroll one afternoon after the cobwebs in my brain were sort of overcoming my ability to work, with any purpose. So I went outside for some fresh air, and I was strolling down the street on a pedestrian mall in front of our building, just enjoying the sunshine. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, this homeless man just jumps in front of me. Now, I'd seen homeless people on the street before, and he looked like a typical homeless man. I mean, he had long, stringy hair and a scraggly beard, and his clothes were dirty, and they looked like he'd been sleeping in them for weeks. My usual tactic when I ran into these people was to just do a quick sidestep and go around because they usually were asking for money.
Right.
But this guy was different. And why he was different was he had these amazing, dazzling, sparkling blue eyes that just shone towards me and were making a deep penetration. I felt like he was looking right into the depths of my soul. Mm. And at the same time, his eyes were sending me this gush, this wave of pure, unconditional love. And it was just infusing my whole body with an amazing feeling of peace and security.
That sounds like a dream.
Well, it seemed like it, and I'd never had this feeling before. It was so wonderful, and so I stood there frozen in my tracks like a deer caught in the headlights, and I didn't want to move. The feeling he was sending to me was so amazing that I wanted to just stay there forever. And it was like I was in a time warp, and so I was just soaking this all up, not quite knowing what to make of it. And then he broke my reverie by saying to me, "Why are you here?"
Oh, gosh. Just a minute. Were you in the middle of the street or on the sidewalk, or where were you exactly?
Well, I was in the middle of the street, but the street was blocked off to car traffic. It was just pedestrians only.
Oh, okay.
So just where
a little less dramatic then.
yeah, just where he stopped me right in the middle of the street, and so they said to me, "Why are you here?" Then he quickly disappeared into a nearby store, and so when I finally collected my wits, I decided I better go find this man, find out who he was, and why did he stop me. And so I went into the same store he went into. There was only one entrance and one exit. And I looked up and down the store, and he was nowhere to be seen.
Oh
and I walked back onto the street, and I walked up and down for several blocks hoping to find him, but he was gone. So I went back to my office with my head in a twirl, thinking, okay, well, who is this guy? Why did he stop me? And how did he have such amazing eyes that sort of filled me with this great sense of peace and security? And I really wanted to get to know him. So that night I resolved that I just had to go back the same time on the same street next day and see if I could find him. And I did. I walked on the same street the next day, walked up and down for a while, and as you can imagine, just as I was about to give up and go back to my office, there I found him sitting on a bench by himself.
How interesting. You sort of knew you would be able to find him, but the day before he disappeared.
Yes.
What do you make of that?
Well, he said he was setting me up. There's no question about that. He was setting me up. He was sort of putting the hook in my mouth and setting it so that I would be reeled in to go and find him, and that's why he did it that way. I mean, that's what I assumed anyway. So he wanted me to be really eager to find him and find out who he was. So that's why he did it. He was teasing me in effect.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I found him the next day, he was sitting on the bench by himself, and I went up to him and I said, "So who are you, and why did you ask me that question the other day?" And he said, "I'm a soul just like you, and I'm here to answer your questions and to help you on your journey." And then my lawyer brain kind of kicked in. It's hard to turn off your lawyer brain, believe me.
Well, I'm sure.
And so I became skeptical, and I said to him, "Well, how can you help me when you can't even help yourself? Because it looks like you've been sleeping on the street for weeks and you smell like a dead fish." He just gave me a big smile and he said, looks can be deceiving because you look like you're a successful lawyer with everything under control, but we both know that's just a facade.
Wow. Where did that hit you?
Well, it hit me right between the eyes because he was dead right. Because that was my appearance, but I really was troubled and I had a lot of questions running through my mind for years. And he knew I was seeking answers, and he knew that. You'll find out later when I tell you who he really was, why he knew that about me. But he hit me right between the eyes with it.
Wow.
And he said to me, you can turn around and go back to your office and see if you can find your answers in all those emails waiting for you on your computer, or you can sit down and chat with me. So luckily, my intuition kicked in, and I said, to myself, yeah, what do I have to lose? I can waste a half an hour with this guy and it's no big deal. But maybe there's something better here. And so I sat down and started talking to him. And that began a series of conversations that we had over a period of months. I found out early, he disclosed to me that he was actually one of my spirit guides, and that he and I had known each other for a long time because we had lived many different incarnations on Earth together before, even though I didn't remember it. So he was really quite an amazing guy.
So I got to ask you a bunch of questions about everything you just said, if that's okay.
Sure. Yep.
So he said you found out after a while that he was your spirit guide, but it sounds to me like you made arrangements to meet regularly to have these conversations, correct?
Yeah, we did. Well, no, actually, no. After the first conversation we had on the bench, I didn't know. We didn't make arrangements. I didn't know if he was going to show up again or not.
Oh, but he just kept showing up?
He did. He showed up once more time in the physical as a homeless man. Actually, it was a Saturday afternoon in my backyard, and I happened to be nobody else was home, and I happened to glance out on the deck, and there he was sitting there on a chair. So I went out and I had another chat with him.
Was that a little bit disconcerting? I mean, was your yard fenced?
Oh, yeah, it was fenced and everything. Well, it was, because I didn't know sort of how he got there. But I wasn't alarmed because I knew from my previous conversation that he was a genuine person there to help me. But I was really, I was sort of startled that the fact that he was sitting out there.
Yeah, that would have shaken me up a little bit, even though it sounded like you liked him and you felt safe with him. It's still, these are not things we expect to have happen. But so he explained to you that he was a spirit guide. So was that to mean that he sort of came and went in so far as showing himself in the physical world as he pleased?
Oh, yeah, he could certainly do that. He had never shown himself to me before. And as my spirit guide, he's been with me since I was born, and sending me messages and trying to coach me on my life path, as our spirit guides all do. I mean, we all have 2 or 3 spirit guides, and that's their mission. And he had never shown up before. He told me that he appeared to me in physical form because he had a special message for me, or messages, and that he wanted me to listen to what he had to say, to his revelations, and he wanted me to write a book so I could disclose that to everyone in the world. So that was why he made this direct contact. But before that, he was my spirit guide. I wasn't aware of him. As I'm not aware of my other spirit guides who are in the background there trying to help me on my journey.
This sounds like a pretty exciting book, and I know you're going to send one to me as soon as I actually get you my address. And I want to tell the listening audience that Garnet will also be giving 3 of his physical books for the first 3 of you that opt into the page. There will be a link right here on Blog Talk Radio, or if you're listening on Stitcher, wherever you're listening, you're going to see a link to get a free gift, and you will be offered a free copy of Garnet's book, but only the first 3 of you that opt in will get it. So get ready to do that, because this sounds like there'll be a lot of fabulous information in this book, Garnet.
Well, thank you, Lorraine.
So tell me, did he feel familiar to you?
Yeah, he did. After I was speaking with him for a while, I sensed intuitively that, yes, this is somebody I've known for a long time, although I couldn't put my finger on it, had no memory of it. And he basically confirmed that, said, yeah, we've known each other for a long time. And we actually planned this encounter before I was born, even though I don't remember that planning. But it was planned that it would happen on that day at that time, because it was part of my mission in life was to reveal his truths to everyone, and this was just sort of the starting point. So I did sense that I knew him, and he said, when you get back, when you cross over yourself, come back to the spirit side, you remember all of our former lives and all of our adventures together, and we'll be just like old friends being reunited.
So I want to ask you a crazy question. What's the difference between a spirit guide and an angel?
Well, spirit guides are souls on the spirit side who are assigned or who volunteer to take the job of coaching souls on earth, and their job is to send us messages and try to steer us on the path that we've chosen for ourselves before we're born. And so they sort of overlook us. Angels are special spirits who don't necessarily glom onto one person, but are there to help us when we need it. And one good example of that are guardian angels, who are there to make sure that we don't experience an untimely death before our souls are ready to leave. So we're all souls, we're all spirits, we're all spin-offs of the source, the creator. They just have slightly different functions. Mm-hmm.
But sort of like a different species in a sense. From what I've understood, as a spirit guide was or is human at times, whereas an angel really isn't.
Yeah, for the most part, angels don't incarnate. They don't need to. That's not their mission. Mm-hmm. Although sometimes they will appear on Earth in physical form if it's necessary to help somebody in a dire situation. Mm-hmm. But they don't really incarnate in human form like spirit guides do. And most spirit guides have incarnated, and they're chosen because of their experiences on Earth, and they have some wisdom that they've gained, and they can help the soul they're looking after try to make their way through life without stumbling too much. And so
nothing like practical experience.
Exactly, yeah.
May I ask what religion you practiced at one time? I'm assuming you're probably not practicing the same religion or religion at this point.
I was raised as a Roman Catholic mm-hmm. in a very strict family. Mm-hmm. And I was an altar boy and did all the things and went to church almost every week and sometimes in between. Our family, my mom was very religious, and she made us kneel down every evening to say the family rosary. So that's what I was raised. But by the time I hit sort of my 20s and my 30s, I was questioning a lot of their beliefs, and I had rejected a lot of them by the time I hit my 40s because I just didn't think they made any sense. Mm-hmm. So then I was casting about for a new paradigm to latch onto. Mm-hmm. And I had a lot of the big questions everyone asks, like, well, who am I? What's my life's purpose? Mm-hmm. And what happens to me when I die? Is there a heaven or a hell? Is there a God who judge or punish me? These are all questions that were bothering me and roiling through my mind. And Albert came to answer my questions and to have me write down his revelations so everyone else could take some comfort from what he said.
Wow, what a fantastic, fantastic experience. You're so fortunate. Why you? Why did Albert choose you, other than the fact that you knew each other? I mean, we all know people that probably could come to us. Why did this happen to you?
Well, I asked him that, and he wasn't very candid about that. He didn't say too much, other than he said that I've had previous incarnations as a writer, and they thought that some of that might spill over into this life, and that therefore I might be a good candidate to actually write some books about what Albert was telling me. So that's all that he would tell me. I'm sure there's more to that story, but he wouldn't reveal it to me now.
Does he come back to you still?
Oh yes, yeah. He, after the first few months, and I should tell you, after the first 3 encounters when he came in physical form, after that he was just a voice in my head. We communicated by telepathy. Mm-hmm. So he said, I don't need to come to you in physical form anymore because you know who I am, and so we communicated by telepathy. Uh-huh. And that went on for several months, and then he disappeared for a while I was writing the manuscript for my first book, and then he showed up again a few months later, unannounced, in a different form, which I can get into if you want later.
Yeah.
And we had a series of adventures, which resulted in my second book, Dancing Forever with Spirit. And then after that, he came back again for a second round of adventures, which resulted in my third book, which has not been published yet, but has been finished and submitted to my publisher. So he does come. He gives me spells where he wants me to sort of focus on writing what I've experienced, and then he'll just show up and, okay, time for your next lesson.
Does he ever act as an oracle? I mean, can you have a question and say, hey, Albert, I need an answer? Will he answer you?
He won't answer personal questions, no. He told me it's not his function in communicating with me to help me on my journey, to answer where I should go or what I should do. He said I have to struggle with that like everyone else. So he refuses to give me any hints about what I should be doing or not doing.
Did you argue with him about that?
Oh, absolutely.
I would have too.
I said, Albert, why can't you tell me a few things? It would make my life so much easier. And he said, well, that would defeat the whole purpose for you being here, because you have to struggle with your challenges and find your own way like everyone else. And if I told you where you should be going and what you should be doing, you'd be wasting the rest of your life. And when you got back here, you chide me for having revealed that to you. Wow. So that's his answer. I have to struggle like everyone else with my personal life.
You know, as a spiritual life coach, I'm often asked, important life questions. And one of my students this morning, my clients, I think of them as students, but they really are clients. Well, no, for me, they're students. I'm a teacher. That's how I see myself. But she asked about God. What is God? What does God mean? And, I don't know how you feel about that word God.
Well, according to Albert, God, or he prefers, in my book, I talk about God because everyone uses that term. Right. Albert calls it the source.
Right.
The source is the creator of everything. The source is actually the sum total of everything in the universe, all matter, all energy, and you and I and everyone else on this planet are all part of the source.
Exactly. So I usually explain it as energy, which is the source, correct?
Well, energy and matter matter is the same as energy, and the source is energy.
Right.
It's the embodiment of all energy in the universe.
Well, thank you for clearing that up. That was what I thought. Thanks, Albert.
You're welcome.
So what were the most significant revelations that he made for you?
Well, the first one was he said we're all eternal souls. Okay, we were created by the source. We spun off from the source. We were spun out to learn and explore the universe and evolve as souls. And so before we were born, we all came from the spirit side, which some people call heaven or the other side, whatever. A wonderful place where there's no negative energy, no negative emotions. And we freely chose to incarnate. Like, God or the source didn't make us come here or anyone else. It was like, okay, how can I evolve myself as a soul? I'm going to incarnate into this body on Earth. And before we did that, we prepared a life plan, which we set out the sort of the major circumstances of our lives, like our names, the place we're born, our parents, our siblings, our friends. We sort of set out the broad blueprint of what our life would be. And we did that for the purpose of trying to learn some lessons and experience things that we thought we needed to evolve as souls. And so we came here on our own volition, and of course, it goes without saying that when our physical bodies die, we go back to the spirit side where we can regroup, look at what we've done in our lives, and decide, do I want to go back to Earth again in another incarnation, or do I want to just hang out in the spirit side, or do I want to go to another planet and incarnate into another life form? We have all those choices. The second...
Did he give you any glimpses of what these other planets and life forms might be like?
Yeah, not in the first book, but he did in the second book. He actually took me to a few planets to see some of the life forms.
Wow.
And to talk to them.
Oh, you have to tell us a little bit about that if that's not taking you too far off your story right now.
No, well, in the second book, how he sort of approached me was that I was asleep in my bed, and I woke up in the middle of the night, and I noticed this sort of ethereal figure, shimmering, standing in the doorway of my bedroom, and I was a bit startled. And when it approached me, I could see that it was my old friend Albert, in astral form, not physical form. And so he said to me, "We're here sort of for round 2 of your lessons, or your experiences, and I'm going to take you on a few journeys to see some things in the universe and other places on Earth." So he basically reached out and grabbed my arm and pulled my astral body out of my physical body, and from there away we went. And we went to the spirit side to visit people there and to talk to the Council of Wise Ones, who are this group of wise souls who oversee incarnations on Earth. And he took me to a few other planets and actually to visit some ETs in a spaceship. And so on the one planet called Xuron, there was a group of spider-like creatures who were very intelligent. We communicated by telepathy.
Did they sort of look like grasshoppers with that kind of grasshopper head?
No, more like a spider head, sort of more rounded.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, and anyway, so their function, they had lived on a planet close to the center of the galaxy. Their function was to scan and monitor planets in our galaxy to find out which ones might be ready for life forms, and then they would notify the Galactic Council, who would then arrange for people for other ETs to seed life. That's how life arrived on Earth, was that they determined that Earth was ready for life, so they began by seeding with some primitive life forms, and then eventually they seeded humans. And so it was quite interesting because they were sort of the originators of human life on Earth, and they've had a few sessions where human civilization didn't work and they had to reseed, but it's very interesting.
Very interesting. Did they say if there were other humanoid type forms on other planets, or are they all different?
Well, there's a lot of different creatures. There are actually different human civilizations on different planets, which I visited in my third book, and it was very interesting because the civilizations developed quite differently from how we are on Earth. So it was really quite an eye opener. But so there are other human civilizations, but many other alien life forms in the universe that don't look like humans at all, and some are more advanced than we are, and some are lesser advanced. But
wow.
I mean, the galaxy is just full of other life forms.
Fascinating.
We're just not aware of them as humans.
Well,
but anyway, I got to visit a few of them.
How exciting! Now let me ask you about these other human type forms on other planets that evolved differently than us. Did you relate to them more as beings than you did to these spider-like types of beings, or was it more energy than look that caused you to relate one way or another?
Well, I did relate to them just because they did have human form. And
you were comfortable.
I was comfortable with them, and we had some good conversations. And I'd rather not get into sort of in detail the how they live, because that's in my third book. Oh. But it was very interesting, and it was quite an eye opener. And then I come back, and actually one of the places that he took me in my second book was to a human civilization on Earth in a higher dimension. This was a civilization that had once lived in Central America a long time ago, and they learned to make a mass ascension, increase their vibratory rates, so they moved from Earth, as we live in now, up to Earth in a higher dimension. And that was really amazing because these people, they had learned to get rid of all their negative emotions. There was no crime, there was no hate, anger, greed, and they all lived in harmony with themselves and with the other creatures on Earth. and with Mother Earth herself. So there was no pollution, there was no harm to other creatures, and it was really a very idyllic society where they lived for several hundred years and took their leave when their souls were ready to go back to the spirit side. So that was a goal.
So the entire society took their leave?
Yeah, they did. They managed to do a mass ascension from our level up to the higher dimension. And which is something that all humans should be striving to do, is to increase their vibratory rates to make that jump up to a higher dimension. But you can't do that as long as you have negative emotions. You have to fully embrace love, get rid of all the negative emotions before you can do that. And that's something that the Council of Wise Ones in my second book, that's what they implored me to tell other humans to do, is to, get rid of all the hate, get rid of the conflicts, get rid of stop abusing, Mother Earth, the other animals on our planet, and other humans, so that you can make the ascension before we destroy ourselves as a civilization. So that's sort of the mission that they wanted me to spread to everyone.
Mm-hmm. Wow, you got so much information. Don't you feel incredibly lucky?
I do indeed. I feel very fortunate, and I actually very much love writing about my adventures and the wisdom that Albert gave to me, and I couldn't be happier. Like, being an author is sort of the best thing I could do post-law that I can imagine, and so I'm really quite happy to do it. I'm looking forward to more information from Albert and writing more books.
I want to get back to tons more questions for you, one of which is, how were you perceived, changing your outlook on life and being so open about these thoughts that many could say, oh my goodness, he's gone over on the other side. So let's take a break for my sponsors, and we'll come back and I'll ask you about that, okay?
Great.
We'll be right back.
The power of the I Am is yours at LOAaffirmations.com, bringing you the very best in audio affirmations programs, and introducing our newest title, I Am Happy, Healthy, and Wealthy. All of the LOAaffirmations.com programs are MP3 instant downloads and come with multiple audio and subliminal tracks. Order yours today at LOAaffirmations.com.
Have you ever imagined a life without worries, fears, and problems? What if I told you that you no longer had to live like that? Changes are possible for you through my teachings and affirmations, CDs, DVDs, and apps. Through our book, Peace in the Present Moment, Eckhart Tolle, Byron Katie, and I can show you how living in the present moment will change your life. Visit my website, peaceinthepresentmoment.net, and get inspired on my Facebook page of over 73,000 likes.
Okay, back again. This is Lorane Gordon. I'm your online coach of Your Happiness Way Radio with my inspiring and incredibly entertaining guest, Garnet Schulhauser. Garnet, thank you so much for being my guest today. I am enchanted and intrigued with so much of what you're telling us.
Well, thank you for being such a good listener, Lorraine, and delighted to share my story with you and your listeners.
So, I asked you a question before the break, and that was, what was it like all of a sudden, you're an attorney, and now you're talking about this stuff? Were people thinking you were nuts?
Absolutely. There certainly were some people.
There probably still are, right?
Well, and there still are some people. There are still some of my former law partners and colleagues who haven't spoken to me. And in one example, one of my best friends, we went to law school together, and we actually practiced law together. After I told him I was writing this book, and he was quite anxious to get it, and he kept on every week sending me an email saying, when's it coming out? I can't wait to read it. Well, when it came out, I autographed a copy, sent it to him. I heard nothing for 6 months, not a boo.
Wow, that makes you feel kind of funny, doesn't it?
It does, and I think he was really struggling with it. You see, because if you knew me before I retired from the law and met Albert, you couldn't imagine this in a million years, because I was very much of a straight-laced corporate lawyer. And I never talked about religion or spirituality or anything. And so a lot of people were their jaws just dropped when they read my book and said, could this be the same guy that I knew before?
Right.
And some people, actually, to their credit, were really great about it. I got a lot of great emails from them saying, good for you. You had the courage to actually break out of your spiritual closet and write this book, and we thank you for doing that. And my family was very good. I didn't tell anyone about my encounter with Albert for several years, not even my wife, because I was just afraid that my family might think that I had gone off the deep end. And so I was busy sort of writing my book, and even after I'd finished the manuscript, I wasn't sure if I was going to do anything with it. My one impulse was just to throw it in the drawer and forget about it. And then my intuition said, no, I really got to go and find a publisher and get it out there. And if some people think I'm crazy, well, let the chips fall where they may.
Uh-huh. That's like a graduation, isn't it?
Yeah, it sure is.
And so that's kind of what you did. You came out of the closet in a sense.
Yeah, absolutely. And it wasn't an easy decision, but at the end of the day, I thought, if I don't do this, I'm going to regret it for the rest of my life.
You had to do it.
I had to do it, and I did it, and I certainly don't regret it. And the friends that I may have lost in the meantime, well, they're on their own journey, and I have to be on mine, and eventually, at some point, we'll meet up again.
Wasn't it interesting, though? My life changed greatly. I changed my friends radically from that point on, but I found my soul group.
Did you?
Yeah. Haven't you found that the people that you have allowed into your life since then are more like-minded?
Oh, absolutely. Yes, no, and I met a lot of very interesting people, and they are more like-minded, and we think alike, and it's sort of like,
It's home.
Yeah, Albert warned me about this. He said, when you do this, you're going to lose some really good old friends, but you're going to gain some really good new friends.
Right. Interesting.
And I did, and I'm very happy for it, because now I'm with. I tend to hang around people who think more like me, and it's just a great feeling to know that there's other people who agree with what I think, and they have the same thought process.
Yes, because when you know these things or believe these things, and you aren't talking it, you aren't sharing it, it's kind of lonely. It's not living your truth, and you can feel lonely because you have to have somebody to relate to these things with you.
Absolutely, yes, and finding the like-minded people is a major part of it. And you know what? I didn't have to really search out. A lot of people searched me out after they read my book, so it just sort of fell into my lap, and I'm grateful for it.
Oh, of course. So why don't you tell us, your book states that we plan the major aspects of our lives before we're incarnated or born again. Can you give us a better understanding of how this works?
Yeah, I mean, it's called, Albert referred to it as a life plan, and it's a planning process before we're born. And we actually get together with, we have in our minds some experiences that we want to go through, like maybe we want to experience being poor, or experience the tribulations of being rich, or experience being, born in one country versus another. And so we sort of figure out where we want to go, and then we get together with the people that we will interact with, so that you have to sort of plan this with your people in your soul group. So the people who are going to be your parents, people who will be your siblings, your children, your husband, your grandparents, you get together with them because they all have to agree that they're going to be part of your life, and then you have to agree to be part of theirs. Mm-hmm. And so this planning it's literally like sitting around a big table and going through it, and you say, I want to do this, and will you be my mother, or will you be my father? And it's all a matter of consensus, and you sort of make a bond or a contract with each other that you will go ahead and do this. And then the wise ones will get into the act. They will look at your plan to make sure you're not biting off more than you can chew, given the state of your evolution. Because if you get into too harsh of life before you're ready, it'll just be a disaster. And so they try to pull you back if you're being too ambitious, or they'll kick you in the pants a bit if you're picking sort of too much of an easygoing life. And so they give you some guidance, and then from there, and you pick your spirit guides. People that you may have incarnated with before, people who might have experience in your particular new life coming up, that they can give you guidance. And then from there you go. And then once you're born, of course, you forget whatever you've planned. You forget what's in your life plan, or that even that you have one. And that's all by design, because if you knew what you had planned, it would make things too easy for you here. And so that's how you sort of set it up, and it's all as a matter of learning things that you think you need. But the good thing about it is that, well, I should say that the bad thing about that, in a way, is that it doesn't etch in stone what's going to happen to you in your life, because you have free will on Earth, and you have free will to take actions. And because of that, and because you don't know what's in your life plan, we often stray off course, and sometimes we stray way off course and do some horrible things. But in the end result, it doesn't matter, because no matter what you do here on Earth, you always go back to the spirit side. Whether you're a good person or a bad guy, and then you just reevaluate what you've gone through, figure out where you made your mistakes, and plan your next life. So
you get a do-over, in a sense.
You can have as many do-overs as you like, because there's no timetable, there's no deadline, and you can incarnate on Earth 20 times or 6,000 times. It's up to you.
But the common thinking around that is that when you're getting close to your last incarnation on Earth, you've actually graduated. Is that accurate?
Yes, yeah. And the graduation is something that you determine yourself. Each soul decides when they've sort of graduated from the Earth planet, from the Earth plane, and you decide that. It's not some judge or some council or committee that says, okay, Lorraine, you're finished with it. It's when you feel comfortable as a soul that I've learned everything that I need to learn on this planet, and it's time to move on. So, yeah, you do graduate, and some people do it very quickly, some people do it slower, but it doesn't really matter because you go on forever, and there's no deadlines involved.
What surprised you the most about Albert's revelations?
What surprised me the most was he said that no one on Earth dies by accident. He says, even though people appear to die by accidents, car crashes at the freeway, planes go down, whatever, he says, those aren't accidents. He says, you leave your physical body when your soul is ready to leave, and not before or not after.
Really?
Yeah, your soul makes a decision. You're not consciously aware of what your soul is planning, which is probably a good thing, but your soul has the final decision as to when you want to leave.
Could that kind of explain why sometimes we feel after a person has passed that our last conversation with them was, in a sense, they were saying goodbye?
Yes.
And you just know it. You just feel it. Maybe you didn't know it exactly at that moment, but later you think, gee, there was a smell of my grandmother in the room when my nephew left. You remember little things like that. At the time, you kind of don't let them in, but in retrospect, you think that was pretty obvious.
Yeah, and as you get closer to, in many circumstances, when you get closer to your physical death, you're actually you have the feeling that your soul is ready to go, and so a lot of cases like that, you're actually saying farewell to people, even though you don't know for sure, but you really sense that that's what's going to happen.
Well, but what about those that are horribly depressed? Look at the stars that for some reason I can't think of his name offhand, the great comedian that just hung himself.
Robin Williams?
Yeah.
Well, that's just part of his life's journey, and so he became depressed either because he had planned that beforehand, because he wanted to go through what it was like to be a depressed person and someone who was about to commit suicide, or he didn't plan that, but his free will actions took him off course to get into, I don't know if he was in drugs or alcohol or whatever it was that may have spurred on his depression or his interactions with other people. So it could have happened in one of two ways, but that's just a life experience for him. And when he gets back to the other side, he'll understand why it happened, and if it was planned, then he'll understand that he was supposed to experience what it was like. And if it was unplanned, he will look back and say, okay, so that's how, that's where I went off course, and that's where I went wrong, and I'm going to plan another life where I have the same tests and see if I can make it this time.
Or perhaps he was teaching others what that looks like.
Absolutely. Very true. Albert says that sometimes we will incarnate on Earth not so much to help our own evolution, but to help others. And so
that drunk laying in the street with urine running down his leg that we may look at askance and be frightened of can be our greatest teacher.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. He could have incarnated solely for the purpose of encountering you on the street and teaching you a lesson that you needed to learn.
Matter of fact, next time I see someone like that, I'm going to kneel down and whisper, Albert, is that you? And I'm going to hope it is.
I hope for your sake it is too, yes.
Thank you. So tell us a little bit about your second book.
Well, I alluded to the sort of the beginning of that earlier on, and it was really Albert appearing in my bedroom one night in astral form and pulling my astral body out of my physical body and saying, come, let's go, I have some things to tell you, some things to show you. He said, a picture is worth 1,000 words, so it's easier for me to show you things than to sit here and tell you about it. So he took me, and when you're in astral form, we just rose up through the ceiling and up into the sky. He took me, first stop was to the spirit side. And it's just, we went to this gleaming doorway into the spirit side, and the spirit side is just an amazingly beautiful place. It's almost beyond description by words. And we started off in this amazing meadow where the grass was green and lush, and there was all kinds of wildflowers in like 1 million different colors, and the sky was radiant, and it was just just like the most wonderful place you could ever imagine. And we walked for a while, and then he brought me to a group of souls, and I was being reunited with my mother and father and grandparents and my brother who had passed away, and so we had a nice reunion, and it was a very warm welcome. And I was particularly concerned about my mother because she was a very staunch Roman Catholic, and I feared that because of what I wrote in my book,
no, she'd be angry, right?
Yeah, she'd be upset with me, and I wasn't kind to the Catholic Church in my book, and so I was thinking, oh no, what's my mom going to say? And she says, not to worry. She says, if I was still on Earth, I know I wouldn't like what you wrote, but now here I'm on the spirit side, and I see the whole picture, and good for you for doing it, and don't be afraid because we're encouraging you every step of the way.
I can't wait to read your first book to find out what you wrote, because of course all of us have a lot of thoughts about that right now, considering everything that's been in the news the past few years, right?
Right, yeah. No, and I do have a chapter there on sort of my upbringing as a Catholic, and I take a few body slams at the Catholic Church and their hierarchy, which I think is well deserved. But if someone who's a very staunch Roman Catholic might very well take offense at what I'd said, but I had to say it.
Well, it's your truth, isn't it?
Yes.
I think it's very brave. It takes a lot of guts to do what you did, didn't it, at the time? I mean, like you said, you sort of sat on it for a long time before you even told your wife.
Yeah, I had to struggle with it for a long time, and then, as I said, eventually I decided that it was something I had to do, and I did it. But it wasn't an easy struggle, and I was really, there were so many times I just felt like taking my manuscript and throwing it in the wastebasket and saying, forget it, I'm not coming out of the closet. But thankfully, I did.
Right. Because it did. It threatened to change your entire life, and I guess in many, many ways it did change your entire life.
Absolutely, but everything was for the better, and I'm very happy with where I am right now, and I can't imagine my life post-law retirement without having contacted Albert and written my books. It would be just totally different. So,
do you have children?
Yes, I have 2 sons. So,
and how did they handle this?
Pretty well. My eldest son was Blake was fairly spiritual, and so he accepted it all. He actually challenged me on a few of my revelations, and we had some good discussions, but he accepted it. And my younger son is a prosecutor in Calgary. He hasn't said much, so I'm not quite sure where he is, but at least he hasn't come out and said, Dad, you're crazy. He hasn't done that yet.
Right.
And I don't think he will, but I don't think he's quite as signed on to what's in my book as my elder son. And my wife's very spiritual, and she just agrees wholeheartedly and thinks it's great. She really encourages me to keep on writing, and thinks it's just a great sort of second career for me.
Oh, yeah, and it sounds like you're so enthusiastic. It gives you great energy and zest.
Oh, absolutely, and I actually get the last few years of practicing law, I was really tired of it, and I had to sort of drag myself into the office. Now, when I'm writing, I just get up and I just can't wait to sit at the keyboard and start writing. It's very wonderful, really.
So, what purpose do you believe you're fulfilling through your writing?
My purpose is to give comfort and inspiration to people in the world who are struggling with all the eternal questions that I struggled with, like, who am I and why am I here and where do I go? And I know there's a lot of people like me who are raised in an organized religion, like you were raised in your faith. I was raised Roman Catholic, and a lot of us have been questioning what we were taught, and we're searching for some answers that sort of ring true in our hearts. And my mission, as I take it from Albert, is that I'm to, in my books, is to give people the answers they're seeking and give them some comfort that they're on the right track and that they will continue to live after their bodies die, and some inspiration to become better people, to listen to what Albert has to say and to try to discard negative emotions and embrace love. and so that we can all have a happier journey on Earth.
So let me ask you this question. I know that as the type of teacher and coach I am, I definitely talk about letting go of anger and forgiving, and I talk about observing your mind and realizing that all those thoughts are not really you, and bringing about a higher sense of awareness and breathing, deep breathing. What if you're one of your children were to come to you or a good friend and said, "Dad, I'm unhappy." What kind of a tip would you give them to start leading a happier, more fulfilled, or lighter life?
Well, I think the first thing to do is, and you hit the nail on the head, is that we have to sort of slow ourselves down occasionally during the day, take some deep breaths, and to meditate, because when we can quiet our minds, that's when we can hear the messages that our spirit guides are sending us all the time. And they're trying to send us messages of comfort and inspiration and try to guide us on taking the right path. And when we come to a decision or to an action, they're trying to encourage us to take the higher road rather than the lower road, to react with love rather than anger or hate or jealousy. We get these messages all the time, and if we can sort of learn to quiet our minds through meditation, we'll hear them better, be able to understand where they're coming from, and then react accordingly. And so, a lot of people say, you've heard this before, I'm sure, Lorraine, that we have to learn to live in the now. That if we dwell in the past too much or look into the future too much, all we do is cause ourselves stress, which is a very negative waste of energy. And we have to learn to live in the present. And meditation is one way of getting there. And it's not easy to do, but once you learn to get into the practice of it, your stress level will go down, and you will look at people differently, because you understand that we're all souls having a human journey on Earth, and that if you lash out at somebody else, you're really lashing out at yourself, because we're all part of the source.
Well, so true. And of course, when you're living in the moment, you're free of that worry for the future, and you're free of the remorse of the past, which is definitely not a happy place to live. The moment is normally quite perfect, and if it isn't, you're very busy doing something to make it perfect. For example, if the house is on fire, you're getting out. You're not sitting around worrying about it. Right?
Exactly. But we all live such busy lives, it seems, that trying to forget
Very
about the past,
or
you're worrying about what you're going to do next week. It's always in our minds, and it's really difficult to sort of focus on the present. But that's something that we have to do, and if we can do that, we'll have a much happier life.
So true. And I think the other great thing about being in the present moment is what you said. We are less busy judging others. We are just understanding that what is, and that means it's neither bad or good, and neither are people. They just are. And we accept. And because of that, we're not stressing.
Exactly. And being non-judgmental is very important, because, like you say, according to the source, there's no absolute right or wrong, no matter what you do on Earth. So it's neither good nor bad, it just is. And everyone's on their own journey, and you can't possibly judge other people's actions, without knowing where they came from, where they're going, what they did in their past lives, and what their goal is.
Right.
And so judging other people is just, it doesn't get you anywhere, and it just raises negative emotions. Right.
And I think that is very difficult. It's a difficult concept for many to not get behind well, this is wrong, and this is right, and this is bad, and I should be angry, and I should fight against this. And when you learn what Albert has taught you, it sounds like you learn that nothing is either good or bad, only thinking makes it so, which, of course, we've all heard, but now you begin to practice it, don't you?
No, absolutely, yeah. And as long as you can keep that in your mind, then you won't judge other people. And the other thing is you won't be judging yourself harshly either, because that's one of the things we all tend to do, is look back on what we did, on our mistakes, and say, oh no, why did I do that? That was so stupid, We have to get that out of our minds. We have to learn to forgive ourselves and to love ourselves, and then we can go on to forgive others and love others.
So true, because we really are all from the source, and we're more alike than we are separate. I just want to ask you, is there anything that you have that you would like to leave the audience with, any particular words of wisdom or life message?
I think everyone should realize, one of the messages that Albert gave me was that we create our own reality on Earth. We created it in part because of what we put in our life plan. So we set up the basics for our life, but we create it by how we react to events in our lives. So when things happen, bad things happen, you can either become bitter about it and wonder why it's happening to you, or you can just say, okay, this happened to me. There's a lesson here to be learned. I should learn from it and move on and go on to the next event. And if you keep that in mind, you know that you can never be a victim. You're not a victim of actions by God or the universe. You create your own reality. And the second part of that is that you have to realize that, and Albert told me this, it was sort of funny. He said, you take things too seriously. You need to lighten up. You need to understand you're on a human journey here, and that nothing that happens on Earth is for keeps. That no matter what you do, you always return to the wonders of the spirit side, and the only thing you'll take with you are the memories and the wisdom you gained from your last journey. And so he said, don't take it so seriously. Look on life on Earth as though you're in a play, and when the play is over, no matter what happened to you at that play, when the curtain goes down, it's all over. You go back out into the real world.
Or a new play, right.
A new play the next day, yeah.
Wow.
And so that's how you have to look at it. And then when bad things happen, you say, okay, well, what the heck, this is just one little episode in one life for my soul, and I'm going to learn from it, and I'm going to move on.
And of course, you hit on something so important, which I teach a lot about law of attraction. The way you accept or experience what is what creates the next moment and the next. And by viewing yourself as a victim, you bring on more victimology. But when you accept what is, as you just said, and look at it more as a play, then the world is wide open for the next good event.
Absolutely. You have to have that attitude. If you do, you'll have a much more enjoyable journey. You will learn much more, and everyone around you will be happier because of all the positive energy you're spinning off to everyone you meet.
I just want to ask you one more question before you go, and that is, do you still have contact with Albert?
Yes, I do, and I just finished my second round of Astro Adventures with Albert in October of this year. And I finished writing my third book based on that, which was submitted to my publisher. And we don't have regular contact right now. He said he'd be back when the time was ripe to take me on another set of adventures, which would be my fourth book. And so I just accept that. I mean, Albert has his own agenda, which he doesn't always disclose to me. But every time he comes and every adventure he takes me on, it's for something for me to learn and for other people to learn from. And so he has a very specific purpose. And so he'll be back again. I'm not sure when. He doesn't tell me the details, but some night he'll just show up in my bedroom again and say, "Come on, we're going."
Wow. Well, you are certainly blessed. You really, really are a blessed human being. And I feel that way, too, because you have been a wonderful guest. And the information that you brought to this show today enhances so much of what I teach. It's so much of what my other guests teach, but in your way, in a different way, and in Albert's way. And I want to have you come back again and again with each book. If you would do that for me.
I'd be delighted. Lorraine, you've been a fantastic host. You ask great questions, and I can understand why you have such a great listenership because you just have a great show.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. And for everyone that wants to get in touch with Garnet Schulhauser, you can do so right here on the page that you're listening, be it Blog Talk or YouTube or iTunes or Stitcher. Or you can go to his Facebook page, which is Dancing on a Stamp, or you can go to his YouTube channel, which is user/Garnet Schulhauser. And I want you all to remember to go ahead and click on Radio Guests Gifts. And if you are one of the first 3 who do that, you could get a physical copy of Dancing on a Stamp. And I know that you're going to be thrilled to get that copy because this book sounds amazing. I want to know more about what Albert has to say. Now, we talked a little earlier about quieting the mind so that you can hear the guidance that you are being given, whether it's from your higher self or from source or from your spirit guides. If you have a noisy mind, you can't hear it. And so, as one of the gifts that I offer you weekly is a guided meditation. It's an immediate download MP3 that will bring you into that place of peaceful clarity. And that is the only place that you can choose happiness. You see, a quiet, peaceful mind has access to higher wisdom and inspiration. So go ahead and click the link that says Lorane's Gifts, or you can just subscribe at LoraneGordon.com. That's LoraneGordon.com. And you will also be putting yourself on a list for a free masterclass that I will be beginning towards the middle of January. Just by subscribing, you'll start to get videos that are teachings on how you can live and make the law of attraction work for you. And one of those ways we just discussed, and that's living in the present moment. So you're going to get lots of free information from me. I want to thank you all for taking your time to listen to my show, and I want you to continue writing me. I always answer your questions. Make comments under the show because that helps others to hear what perhaps they need. You may be doing the work that you're supposed to be doing simply by writing a comment, and I urge you to do so. Thank you for listening, and I will be back with you the same time, same place next week. This is Lorane Gordon. Namaste, and goodbye for now.
You've been listening to Happiness First, the Rest Will Follow, with Lorane Gordon. She'll be back next week with another great show. And to learn more about Happiness First, visit LoraneGordon.com. That's LoraneGordon.com. Be sure to subscribe and receive some fantastic free gifts. Lorane wants to bring you more of what you want, so please make a comment on the show page here. Or you can email her at Lorane@LoraneGordon.com. And thank you for listening.